Hi guys, welcome back to the For You channel. Now, today we have got Nige with us. Hello Nige, how are you?
Hi Tim, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, introduce yourself. You're something of a uniqueness on our channel.
Yeah, so I've just retired after a 30-year career in policing, the last 10 years of which I was working as a hostage negotiator. So quite an interesting little backstory.
Yes. Now, this is when you say police negotiator and hostage negotiator and so forth, immediately you think of Hollywood. But let's jump straight into it. Is it as glamorous as people make it out to be, or people might think it is?
Tim, it is so not glamorous. So generally speaking, if you're watching it on a film, it's a negotiator played by Denzel or Samuel L. Jackson or somebody like that. But there's just nothing glamorous about it. It's life or death stuff. It's physically and mentally draining. It's often in the middle of the night, in weather conditions that you wouldn't take your dog out in. And to be honest, I'm not sure that Denzel could cope with it.
So you're telling me that you don't have a makeup and catering and so forth?
There's nothing. It's just me in a traffic car at 150 miles an hour going around the motorway, and then leaving you somewhere to deal with a job. But it was such an incredibly rewarding task, though. I mean, I've had some great jobs in a 30-year in policing. But it was by far the most rewarding. It was a great job. It was an honour to do.
So tell me about the role.
So the role, there's various different things that we do. We deal with people in crisis, and we deal with sieges, wanted people, and this is on top of your day job. So towards the end of my career, I was a detective inspector in counter-terrorism policing. That was my day job, 9 till 5. You'd get home, and at 7 o'clock in the evening, you'd get a phone call saying, we've got a siege in Oldham. Can you go up there? Can you deal with it? And you'd be up there for 8, 10, 12 hours, come back, go to bed, get up for work the following morning.
Wow.
So it was tough, but you know what? It was what I wanted to do. It's what I'd always wanted to do. And I felt comfortable doing that. That sounds really weird because it's such an incredibly high stress environment. But I've got to be honest, I thrived on it, and I felt fulfilled doing it. It was great.
Well, you did it for what, 10 years as a negotiator?
Yeah, so 30 years in the police, the last 10 as hostage negotiator, and I suppose the last 7 or 8 as part of the directing staff, teaching and assessing new negotiators. So one of the great things about retiring, which has been a difficult wrench for me, has been that I've spent the last few years sort of training the next generation of negotiators who are going to carry on doing that fantastic work that they do.
So what are the kind of key skills that are involved in negotiating? Because we all negotiate every single day. We negotiate with ourselves, we negotiate with friends, with family, with people over the phone and so forth. What are those key skills towards negotiation?
So the biggest skill of a negotiator is being able to listen. It's fascinating when you go out with a meal with somebody for the first time, and they say, "So you're a negotiator, then, are you?" And you go, "Yeah, yeah." So what do you do? It must be fascinating. What do you do? And you go, I listen to people. Yeah, but the kind of cut and thrust and all the kind of really exciting stuff. What is it you do? I listen to people really hard. And when I do that, they tell me the secrets. They open up to me. We develop a relationship. We get to like each other. So I listen to them more like they're the only person in the room, like they're the only person that really matters. And as a result of that, we get to like each other. And I'll ask them to do something that they really, really don't want to do, but they'll do it because they like me. So it's all about being able to develop relationships with people, listening at a level that we don't listen to on a daily basis. And being able to recognize and deal with emotions.
And how, obviously, the last 12 months for all of us have been almost non-negotiable. And you can probably hear my dog is trying to negotiate the door right now. So, Willow, Willow, come here. This is not a negotiation. You're going to have to stay here with me. So the last 12 months, we really haven't been in a place to negotiate at all. We've sort of had to negotiate with ourselves as our life has changed. What have you learned over the last 12 months, and what have you applied over the last 12 months?
Yeah, so it's been a really tough time for everybody over the last year, and life has changed for a lot of people. You know, people have been working at home and doing this kind of thing instead of being in the office, and that brings along its challenges, you know, in different lines of work, because negotiation looks very different when you're doing it like this face to face. It's difficult to establish those kind of personal relationships and that rapport that you would get it by sitting in the room with you with a cup of tea chatting like this. So it just, you know, it's kind of really brought home to me the need to kind of listen and connect with people at a more kind of elite level, especially when those connections are really being strained because we're not meeting with people. And it kind of really, it's pushed home to me how very often when we chat to people just on a daily basis, how superficial we can be, and how important it is that we're really looking out for each other in a way that perhaps we've not had to do before.
So obviously over the last 12 months, we've changed a lot. What have you noticed, and have you applied the skills that you've had, say, for the last 10 or so years that you've developed? How have you applied those almost day to day? Now our day to day is so different.
Yeah, well, I think that because of everything that people are going through, we kind of, you know, we're a lot more emotional than we were. You know, people are on edge a little bit. People are finding it difficult in different ways. So the other key skill of a negotiator is kind of managing emotions, recognizing emotions in people, and being able to deal with that, and diffuse it through listening skills, and just making people feel that they matter, really. So even with those people around you, particularly with people in work, when the team that I've had in work, have had, you know, it's been difficult and it's been different for them, and just recognizing when people are struggling, but also accepting the fact that you never truly know how somebody feels. You know,
Yes.
even if I've been through a really similar situation, I don't know how they feel inside. And that's why it's really important that you kind of open up and you ask them, and you allow them to tell you, because otherwise we try and make sense of things from our life experience and from what we've done. Okay, so he's having to do that now. I remember how I felt when I had to do that. So he must feel the same way, or she must feel the same way. That's just nonsense. But that's what we do when we go through life. And then we problem solve, and we give people advice from that perspective rather than actually giving them what they need. So that's the thing that I've learned, really. You never truly know what's going on inside somebody else's life,
And
unless you ask.
For somebody watching this now, obviously things are hopefully going to be changing for the better, and we're going to be heading out of lockdown and hopefully getting back to a sense of normality. What is the one thing that we could all use and take away from this that would enable us to almost not make that mistake?
It's listening to understand. When we talk to people and we listen to people, we listen to reply. You're chatting to somebody and they say something, and you've got in your head what you're going to say next, and you're wholly focused on that. So you're not listening now. You're formulating your reply, whether that's you're agreeing with somebody, or you just sat there thinking, right, I'm going to wait for a gap in the conversation until I can say, actually, that's wrong. I don't agree with that at all. But when you actually start to try and listen to understand, that brings a kind of whole new world of opportunities in getting people to open up and talk to you, and then you do know what they're saying, and that's at the heart of negotiation. It's listening to people, getting them talking, keeping them talking, and listening to you, so you understand what they're saying. You understand how they feel better than you did before.
So what would be the difference then? Because we say that I think it's something around 7% of our communication is verbal, and the rest is, you know, is all of the other forms of communication that we have, be it visual and so forth, and the way we actually say things and our tone and so forth, which I suppose is why over email things get so misconstrued so often. You know, we always take the wrong end of the stick almost. So what is the difference between, say, hearing somebody to listening to somebody to really understanding them?
So if hearing somebody is just sitting in a room and it's just chit chat. So you're walking down a corridor and you say to somebody, how are you? And they go, well, I'm not so bad. Oh, great. Carry on walking. You know, how are you doing? I'm okay, really. They carry on walking. And that's how we go about our lives, generally speaking, to quite a superficial level. If you're listening at elite level and you're walking past somebody in the corridor at work or in school, and you say, how are you? You go, I'm okay, really. An elite level listener is thinking, really? What did that mean? What was that qualifier for? I'm okay, or I'm okay, really? So it's picking up on bits of stuff. It's kind of really, it's elite listening stuff. You know, it's just not just listening to what people say, but the way people say it, what the body language is like at the time. And you talked about the sort of 7%. I've got issues with that. It's the old 55% is non-verbal, 38 the way you say it, and 7% is the actual words that you say. Don't get me wrong, non-verbal communication is really important, as is the tone, and that is really important, probably more important than anything. But if we turn the video off now and there were just two of us talking together, or we were talking on the phone, I don't accept that we'd lose 93% of our conversation. But it is important, but it's not as important as that would perhaps suggest. But you know, it is to a degree about reading people, reading the non-verbals, and making sure that they're congruent, they're in keeping with the words they're saying. So if they're saying I'm fine, but they don't sound anything like fine, then let's have a chat about it and let's find out what that's about. But in life, we go, oh, good. What are you doing tonight? And we skirt over those things. Whereas a good communicator, a good negotiator, big eyebrows will be coming up, and you'll be thinking, what does okay mean? Why do we say that? So yeah, that's so important, but it's exhausting when you're doing it for a long period of time. It is exhausting, and that's why people don't do it.
I suppose that's why we sit at that superficial level, is because the amount of energy we're going to put into that compared to what we put into all the other tasks and everything else that's going through our head, we're just splitting the amount of energy we've got up.
Yeah, and you're right, it's exhausting. I once did a 9-hour negotiation. It was an armed siege in Stockport. And we got him out eventually, and I walked over to the police van after chatting to the commander, and I was leaning on the side of the van chatting away, and he went, yeah, you're looking really relaxed about it, you know, leaning on the car, trying to look cool. I was leaning on the car because my legs are completely gone. My legs were like Bambi. Wow. Just the sheer exhaustion of it, and the relief. But I was leaning on the car because I thought, if I don't lean on the car here, I think my legs are going to go.
And what about the other end of the spectrum? What's been your shortest negotiation?
Oh, shortest negotiation was it was Christmas morning. I think it was the second year that I was into negotiating. I got woken up by the duty officer about 4 o'clock in the morning and told, can you get over to, it was at Stockport again, there's a man on a roof of a building. So I got thrown in a traffic car. I'm getting spun all the way there, and all I can hear is my wife's words ringing in my ears as I got out of bed saying, the kids are going to be up opening the presents at 7 and you better be back. And I got whistled all the way to Stockport, and I got out, and it was a mid-terraced house, and I got out, and the scene commander was in the front garden. I said, okay, what have we got? And he said, we've got a bloke on the roof of the shed, round the back of the address. And I said, shed? He said, yeah. Is anybody speaking to him? No, he said he'd jump. Right, okay, leave it with me. And I walked around the house, and at the time we all had digital audio recorders. So I'm walking around the house, and I saw this bloke, and he was stood on the roof of a shed, and he was 6 feet off the floor. You could have grabbed his ankles. He was that close to the floor. And I didn't even turn my microphone on. The rain was coming horizontally. It was horrible, and he looked like the most miserable bloke I've ever seen in my life. He was soaked to the bone. And I walked over to him, and I just looked up, and I went, it's 4:30 in the morning. It's Christmas morning. My kids are going to be opening presents shortly. I said, and you really look like you want to come down. And he went, yeah, I do. So I said, just let me get a set of ladders. So I put a set of ladders up, and he said, shall I come down? He said, shall I come down now? And I went, no, just wait a minute. And I turned my microphone on and went, so you're going to come down then? And he said, yeah. So brilliant. Come on then, turn my microphone off. And we walked around the house together, and the commander was stood there, and I just gave him this loving look and went, he's down. I got in the traffic car, and I just got back in time for the kids to wake up and open the present.
That is amazing.
Another good news story.
And I dare say you have your wife to thank for
that. yeah, absolutely. And you know, and joking aside, when I retired, you got a massive bunch of flowers through the post from the negotiating cadre, because we recognised that it doesn't just impact on me. That role doesn't just impact on me. It impacts on the whole family, and they have a big contribution to make. And it's kind of whether it, you know, negotiators come from all walks of life, and some are married, some are not, some have got kids, some haven't. But you still need that support network around you, and it impacts on them as well. You know, we've been sat in restaurants having meals, and my phone's been gone. My phone's gone off, and I've ended up sat in the manager's office dealing with a hostage taking at the other end of the country. And they've been sat there having the meal on their own. It has a big impact. So, you know, yes, she had a lot to play in me getting that resolved so quickly, but she also has a lot to play in me being such a successful negotiator over the years.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really nice of you to say that. So obviously your experience in negotiation is quite an extreme experience. You know, in very extreme circumstances, most of which most of us probably and hopefully won't ever experience. But for, say, the rest of us, mundane, day-to-day life, the negotiations that we have, what tactics and tips could you share with us? And especially in the current environment that we're operating in, where we often don't have the face-to-face or even the verbal, a lot of it, you know, we are doing over instant messenger, or we're doing it over an email and so forth. We may well have a Zoom call or something like that. But, you know, a lot of the time today, we are just pinging out emails to one another. And we're always negotiating with people, whether that's over, say, moving a date, asking them to do a task, or whether it is, you know, when we all go back to the real world, shall we say, and we maybe go into a restaurant if we're not happy with something in a restaurant. How can we apply negotiation? What tips and tricks can you give us?
So negotiation is exactly the same, whether it's me on a bridge at 3 o'clock in the morning, whether it's you sat in the office typing an email to somebody. It's all about developing relationships with people, and it's about listening to understand, and it's about dealing with emotions, and giving people the opportunity to get things off the chest, generally speaking. So it doesn't really matter whether it's typing an email or whether it's in a Zoom meeting. It's about creating those relationships. It's about creating that rapport and that trust, which then allows you to go on and influence people. You know, maybe in some people's world to influence them to buy so many things off them, or to enter into contract with them. For me, it was slightly more extreme than that. It was convincing people to put the gun down, or let the hostage go, or come down off the roof, or whatever it was. But ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about you've got to be in a position where you've created a relationship with them that allows you to do that you've understood them, because you've listened to them, you've dealt with any emotions, you've dealt with any fears, or, you know, if you work in an office taking complaints, that, you know, you've dealt with that anger and frustration, you've allowed people to get it off the chest, that you now understand what the issue is, you can now deal with it. So it's the same skill set, it's just in a different position. But the key things are listening, developing that relationship, developing that trust, and not just going for the cheap car sales tactics of thinking that you can walk in a room and just influence people because you are who you are.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Right. Nigel, thank you so much for joining us on the channel. Now, I'm going to put something out there. This is a bit off-piece out there. We didn't discuss this before, but how would you feel about doing a negotiation with me over Zoom in another video?
Yeah, bring it on.
Brilliant. Right. If you would like to see that, guys, please do drop a comment below. It's right underneath that like and subscribe button. If you've enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. There's loads of great content on there already, and there's plenty more coming up as well. Nigel, thank you very much for joining us. Have you enjoyed the interview?
You're welcome. I've loved it. Nice to meet your dog as well.
Yes, I do apologise about the dog. She seems to just appear at the most inconvenient of times. She started off as this lovely little pup, if you were watching back last year, and now she's turned into a bit of a beast. She turned 1 yesterday, so she's getting along well, but hopefully she'll get through this teenage phase. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. We will see you again soon, and as always, stay safe.